Hello everyone, and welcome to Earth Archives. Today, we're diving into the life of a monumental figure in classical music history, Franz Joseph Haydn, the musical genius known as the father of the symphony and the father of the string quartet. When people think of classical music, names like Beethoven and Mozart often come to mind first. But in truth, it was Haydn who laid the foundational groundwork for classical music. He was the true architect of the genre. From a childhood marked by poverty to becoming a towering figure in the halls of music, Haydn rewrote history through his compositions and left a lasting influence on generations of composers. If you love classical music and want to learn more about Haydn's legendary journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our great content. On March 31, 1731, in the small village of Roro in southern Austria, a baby was born who would one day change the course of music history. His name was Franz Joseph Haydn. Don't assume that such a giant of music was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Quite the opposite. Haydn's family lived in very modest, even poor conditions. His father, Matthias, was a wheelwright who worked with his hands to make a living, while his mother, Anna Maria, worked as a cook in a noble household. Together, they carried the weight of supporting the family through hard work and perseverance. Haydn was the second of 12 children, but fate was not kind to his family. Half of his siblings died at a young age. From the moment he was born, the fragility of life and the harshness of reality were constant companions. Yet, this difficult environment did not break him. Instead, it taught him early on the value of resilience and hard work. Even as a child, he showed an extraordinary musical ear. Whenever his father played the violin or his mother hummed folk tunes, young Haydn would clap and sing along. It was as if music had always been flowing through his veins. From a young age, Haydn seemed to be a child kissed by melody, showing an astonishing natural gift for music. At just 6 years old, he left his warm but impoverished home to follow his uncle to Hainburg, a town slightly livelier than his village, where he formally began his musical education. There he learned to sing, play instruments, and was introduced to the basic structure of orchestral music. For a little boy still losing his baby teeth, it was undoubtedly an adventure, new, exciting, and full of challenges. But young Haydn was unafraid. He had no toys, only sheet music. He had no carefree childhood, but a mind filled with melodies. At the age of 8, his singing caught the attention of Johann Georg Reuter, the music director of St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. Recognizing his exceptional talent, Reuter immediately brought him into the cathedral's boys' choir. This opportunity not only brought Haydn to the musical capital of Vienna, but also laid a golden path that would lead him to the grand halls of music history. At St. Stephen's Cathedral, Haydn received more professional and much stricter musical training. He learned to read complex scores, play keyboard instruments, and even began experimenting with composition. Though life during this period was difficult and living conditions were far from ideal, for Haydn it was a time filled with music and dreams. Every performance, every choral rehearsal was another step forward on his journey toward greatness. However, Haydn's path in music was not as smooth as the melodies he would later compose. At the age of 17, he faced a turning point that every boy soprano eventually must confront. His voice changed. The once angelic tone of his singing grew hoarse and eventually faded, forcing him to leave the boys' choir at St. Stephen's Cathedral. For a child who had grown up within the walls of the church, this was nothing short of being cast out of the only world he had ever known. He had no home to return to, no job to fall back on. He was suddenly alone, with nowhere to go. That night, carrying only a few belongings and a heart full of sorrow, Haydn slept on a park bench in Vienna. The night air was cold, but his mood was colder still. He looked up at the sky, feeling as though the dreams he once held had vanished into the night, and the road ahead was uncertain and dark. Yet it was in this moment of despair that Haydn's inner resilience revealed itself. Like a tightly drawn string on an instrument, the more fate stretched him, the more powerful the response it drew. He did not bow to reality. Instead, he redoubled his efforts to study music theory, teach himself composition, and survive by tuning instruments, giving piano lessons, and writing small pieces for anyone who would pay. Living in a cramped attic, he often gnawed on dry bread to stave off hunger, but his mind was constantly filled with melodies and harmonies. He composed in silence, day and night, driven by the sole desire to let the world hear his music once again. After leaving the choir, young Haydn was like a small boat tossed into a storm, adrift in the harsh waters of reality. He tried every kind of work just to survive, tuning instruments, teaching piano, even playing the violin on the streets, for a few coins through impromptu performances. For a teenager, these sun-scorched, hunger-ridden days were incredibly tough. But Haydn never gave up on his love for music. He believed, with unwavering conviction, that if he kept composing and kept learning, the world would eventually hear his voice. And fate, as it often does, smiled on those who refused to give up. His talent eventually caught the attention of a celebrated Italian composer, Nicola Porpora, who was teaching in Vienna at the time and renowned for his mastery of vocal music and opera. Porpora immediately recognized Haydn's immense potential and hired him as an assistant. Haydn's duties included accompanying students, copying scores, and even serving tea and shutting the doors, but he never saw these tasks as menial. Instead, he eagerly absorbed everything, learning from every detail with a hunger only matched by his passion for music. During his time with Porpora, Haydn not only honed his compositional skills, but was also introduced for the first time to the rich style and precise structure of Italian opera. This mentorship greatly accelerated his technical development and opened his eyes to a broader musical world. More importantly, during this period Haydn also made valuable connections with nobles and key figures in the music scene, relationships that would pave the way for his future career. At the age of 25, Haydn's life took a significant turn. In 1757, he was appointed as music director at the Lukavec Castle in the Bohemian region. This marked his official transition from a freelance musician to a court composer serving the nobility, a major milestone that brought much-needed stability to his career. Life at the castle, though routine, provided him with time and resources to focus on his compositions. His musical style began to take clearer shape, characterized by a bright, lively elegance, like vivid scenes painted in sound. During his years at Lukavec, Haydn not only refined his skills in composing symphonies and chamber music, but also built important relationships with Hungarian nobles who deeply admired his talent. These aristocratic patrons frequently invited him to dinners and gatherings, giving him access to high society and expanding his network. This period was undeniably a critical stage in Haydn's transformation, from a gifted young musician into a mature and sophisticated artist. Even more remarkably, it was during this period that Haydn began experimenting with incorporating folk elements into his compositions. This gave his music not only the structured rigor of European classical tradition, but also a vibrant local flavor that breathed new life into his work. This unique fusion made his music more relatable to the general public, while offering a refreshing novelty to aristocratic audiences. Though Haydn's musical career steadily ascended, his personal life was filled with turmoil and disappointment. He once shared a sincere and affectionate relationship with his student, Therese Keller. The two were deeply connected and supportive of each other. Unfortunately, due to the strict religious norms of the time, Therese was ultimately forced into a convent, bringing their relationship to a premature and painful end. Fate was not yet done testing him. Therese's father later insisted that Haydn marry her older sister, Maria. Despite his reluctance, Haydn yielded under social and familial pressure. Married life, however, turned out to be far from harmonious. Maria had a strong-willed personality and placed high demands on Haydn, which led to growing tensions between them. The household atmosphere became increasingly strained and emotionally taxing. This added a layer of personal stress to Haydn's life, which had previously been focused almost solely on music. To make matters worse, The noble house of Karl Joseph von Funburg, whom Haydn was working for, fell into financial crisis and was forced to dissolve its musical ensemble. This dealt a significant blow to Haydn's professional stability and momentum. Fate often favors those who refuse to give up, and Joseph Haydn was living proof. Just as he struggled through one of the lowest points in his life, fortune quietly extended a hand. Prince Paul Anton Esterházy, a nobleman with a deep passion for music and a keen eye for talent, recognized Haydn's exceptional potential. Without hesitation, the prince invited Haydn to join his court as vice Kapellmeister, making him an essential part of the Esterházy family's prestigious musical establishment. This position was more than just stable employment. It was a dream opportunity. It offered Haydn a platform to express himself, to experiment, and to grow. At the Esterházy court, he had access to some of the finest musicians and performance ensembles of the time, along with ample resources to support his creativity. Although the environment was formal and disciplined, it was also steeped in artistic spirit and brimming with possibility. With unwavering determination and remarkable talent, Haydn began producing a prolific number of symphonies and chamber works, gradually cementing his place in classical music history. The Esterházy family was among the wealthiest and most influential noble houses in Hungary, and their patronage of the arts was second to none. Though Haydn's days at court were busy, they were also incredibly fruitful. He wasn't just composing, he was actively involved in chamber performances, leading choirs, and even working on operas from composition to rehearsal. This diverse and demanding workload allowed Haydn to fully develop his skills and refine his musical voice, helping shape him into one of the most important composers of his time. The princes of the Esterházy family, both the pioneering first-generation Prince Paul II and his successor, Prince Nicola, held Haydn in the highest regard and provided him with an ideal environment for musical creation. Nearly every day, they attended concerts conducted by Haydn himself. This level of attention and unwavering support became a powerful driving force behind his continued creative output. During this golden period, Haydn composed a vast number of masterpieces, with his symphonic works standing out as the most iconic. One such piece is Symphony No. 6, Le Matin, the Morning, which delicately paints the image of a rising sun through music, awakening all life with vitality and warmth. As you listen, it's as if you can hear birdsong and feel the gentle sunlight breaking through the dawn. Another famous work, Symphony No. 45, Farewell, poignantly expresses the sorrow and reluctance of parting. The emotion is so profound and sincere that it leaves a lasting impression on the listener. Under the patronage of the Esterházy family, Haydn's musical world continued to expand, and it was during this time that he met another towering figure in classical music, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Despite being 24 years older than Mozart, Haydn formed a deep and genuine friendship with him. In fact, their relationship, blending mentorship and camaraderie, became one of the most cherished and celebrated friendships in the history of classical music. They often gathered together to play chamber music, sharing their thoughts on composition and musical ideas. Haydn, with his vast experience and profound musical insight, became a significant mentor and supporter to Mozart. In turn, Mozart's astonishing talent and innovative spirit inspired Haydn with fresh energy and perspective. This mutual exchange and creative synergy enriched both of their works, making them even more brilliant and enduring. As a tribute to Haydn, Mozart composed a special set of string quartets, now famously known as the Haydn Quartets. This heartfelt gesture deeply moved Haydn and symbolized the strong emotional bond they shared on their musical journey. Their friendship not only shaped their artistic development, but also gave future generations a glimpse into the pure and sincere connection between two of history's greatest musical geniuses. In 1790, Joseph Haydn's life took yet another dramatic turn. That year, an English impresario named Johann Peter Salomon extended an invitation that would forever change the course of Haydn's career. he asked Haydn to travel to London to explore new musical opportunities. For Haydn, who was already 58 years old at the time, this proposal represented both a great challenge and a leap into the unknown. Many of his friends urged him to reconsider, worried that the long sea voyage could bring dangerous storms, or worse, cost him his life. But Haydn remained resolute. He believed that his music was a universal language, one that could be understood across cultures and borders. In his heart, he knew that music was not bound by geography, and he was determined to share it with the world. Embracing this belief, Haydn embarked on his journey to London. Upon arrival, he was immediately met with enthusiastic welcomes, with concert halls packed to capacity and tickets in high demand. The London audience was captivated by this Austrian composer, deeply moved by his music filled with vitality and creativity. During his 2 visits to London, Haydn composed 12 brilliant symphonies, which later became collectively known as the London Symphonies. Among them, Symphony No. 94, famously called the Surprise Symphony, features a sudden, loud chord that jolts the listener in the midst of a quiet passage, creating an unexpected moment of shock and delight. This clever touch not only showcased Haydn's sense of humor, but also became a timeless classic in the history of music. Additionally, his oratorio The Creation caused a huge sensation in London and became the pinnacle of Haydn's musical career. This work, filled with majestic choruses and orchestration, presents a solemn interpretation of the origins of life and showcases his enduring creative power and artistic influence even in his later years. In 1802, Haydn's health suddenly deteriorated sharply. Rumors spread that the great composer had passed away, and the news quickly swept across Europe, plunging the music world into mourning. Mozart's Requiem became the perfect melody to commemorate Haydn, as countless music lovers lamented this giant of classical music through its notes. However, surprisingly, Haydn was still alive. He even personally wrote a letter to a publisher in England, publicly declaring his good health. This letter became a beacon of hope and respect, rekindling people's admiration for him. As the years swiftly passed, Haydn's health grew increasingly fragile, yet his passion for music never waned. In 1808, to celebrate the classical music master's 76th birthday, a grand concert was held at the Vienna University Music Hall to pay him the highest tribute. Despite his frail condition, Haydn insisted on taking the conductor's podium, waving his baton and personally conducting his own works. The scene was filled with emotion and admiration. His unyielding spirit and dedication to music deeply moved everyone present. This concert became the final chapter of his illustrious musical career, as if bidding a gentle farewell to the world through music. In 1809, Haydn passed away due to health reasons at the age of 78. His life, much like the compositions he created, was full of ups and downs, but always brimming with passion and innovation. Haydn was not only the founder of the Symphony and String Quartet, but also an indelible legend of the classical music era. Haydn's life was like a vast musical epic, during which he composed over 100 symphonies, more than 80 string quartets, and about 30 operas and sacred music works. He was remarkable not only for the sheer volume of his output, but also for his revolutionary innovations in musical form and technique, earning him the true titles of the father of the symphony and the father of the string quartet. Haydn meticulously refined the structure of the symphony, transforming what were once simple movements into richer, more complex and layered works, elevating the symphony to become the central pillar of classical music. His contributions to the string quartet were equally significant. Through his innovations, this small chamber ensemble became the perfect stage to showcase delicate emotions and exquisite technical mastery. Notably, his Emperor String Quartet, whose beautiful Emperor's hymn later became the anthem of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, remains widely cherished among music lovers and stands as a cultural symbol to this day. Haydn's music not only secured his irreplaceable place in history, but also profoundly influenced his contemporaries, including the great masters Mozart and Beethoven. The creative brilliance of these musical geniuses bears the imprint and inspiration of Haydn. His innovative spirit and superb craftsmanship ushered in the golden age of classical music and left a lasting impact on generations of musicians. In short, Haydn was not just a pioneer in music history, but also an eternal beacon, illuminating the future of music. Haydn's life was like a legendary tale full of struggle and creativity. From a poor village boy in Austria, through talent and hard work, he ultimately became one of the greatest composers in world music history. He wrote his life story in notes and expressed his soul through music, proving that no matter how humble your origins, with steadfast belief and relentless effort, you can carve out your own place in the world. Haydn not only created countless beloved classics, but also laid the important foundation of classical music. His musical spirit and innovative thinking have influenced generation after generation of musicians and continue to inspire countless people to pursue their dreams. Just as his melodies never cease, Haydn's brilliance will forever shine in the grand river of human musical history. Thank you for joining us on the journey through the magnificent life of Franz Joseph Haydn. This father of the symphony not only created countless masterpieces, but also was a pioneer of the classical music golden age. His music is not just history, it is the eternal voice of the soul. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment with your favorite Haydn work, and share it so more people can feel the charm of this musical master. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more wonderful stories. Share this musical legend, and let Haydn's brilliance illuminate more hearts. See you next time.